But we'll move on next to Manchester United. Their chief executive, Richard Arnold, is to leave the club after 16 years after Sir Jim Ratcliffe's deal for a 25% stake in the club nears completion. Arnold actually replaced Ed Woodward in February of last year. He's going to provide transitional support until the end of December. No announcement on Ratcliffe's deal is expected as yet, but General Counsel Patrick Stewart's going to take over as chief executive on an interim basis while the club decides on a permanent replacement. Now, the expectation is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe will take over his shares in the coming weeks, Scott. I have to say, I think a lot of people today, Manchester United fans, quite relieved that Richard Arnold is stepping down because they don't feel like the club has been going anywhere. Let's hear what Simon Jordan had to say about it. He isn't really surprised regarding Arnold's departure from the club.
I mean, Richard Arnold's been asking for this. He hasn't exactly set the heather on fire, has he? From walking into the business and deciding to meet a group of people in a pub and being recorded, to the manner in which he's handled Mason Greenwood's situation, to the manner in which they bungled the Ronaldo situation, to the commercials around Man United that are beginning to become under pressure because they're not quite getting the same deals as they once did before, irrespective of the team viewer shirt sponsorship. So I think he's asking for it. Now, whether it's a coincidence or whether it is a byproduct of Ratcliffe coming in and making some changes.
Simon Jordan's back alongside Jim White, by the way, from 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. It's interesting to hear what Simon has to say there in terms of the lack of progress, if you like. Nothing spectacular done by Richard Arnold. But it is, for me, quite a strong signal of intent that Jim Ratcliffe has decided to not even give some people a chance whatsoever.
So you're saying
to
he's
prove
told
their
him
worth.
He's going rather than he's walked himself.
And we expected it. The reports were that there were going to be big changes on the horizon at the football club, but I expected maybe more of a transitional period once this was announced. It seems like it will be very immediate that just Jim Ratcliffe is going to get his people in the positions that he wants immediately. We'll come back to this in a moment because there has been a goal in the Women's Champions League tonight. Chelsea in action away at Real Madrid. Ian Danter.
Real Madrid 1, Chelsea 0, and it was the scourge of England from the summer, Olga Carmona, who's put Real Madrid ahead with a left-footed effort from fully 25 yards out, received it, centre goal was left-footed, and it seemed to take a touch, I think, off Millie Bright, which deceived Berger in the Chelsea goal, deflected past her and into the bottom of the net. Great strike from Carmona, no getting away from that, but the deflection helped her. And after a bright start from Chelsea, they find themselves behind on 10 minutes. Real Madrid 1, Chelsea 0.
So back to Manchester United. I just generally wanted to ask you about big changes at a football club, whether you've experienced something. You know, I guess it will be at different level because not many people have been at a club as big as Manchester United, especially one going through such a turbulent period over the last decade or so. But you know, this could be a big change for the club going forward in terms of how they perform out there on the pitch. But for everyone inside that football club, it's going to be a very immediate change. How does that affect a group of players, management, you know, top to bottom?
Yeah, it can do. I remember at Chelsea, it looked like Matthew Harding was going to be taking over. You know, and unfortunately, that didn't happen. Benfica presidents come and go, but the club is kind of owned by the fans. But they still have a massive say in president as to, one, the manager, and then two, how that money's going to be spent. As a player, all you can do is concentrate on what you control, the controllables, and what you do in the training every day and also in matches. But there's no doubt about it. I do think it trickles down. You know, when you've got the anti-Glazer campaign, and rightly so, I completely get it. I really do. You know, being ferocious and wanting them out, then the fans can feel that kind of negativity to a point. As long, you know, if it's hidden in match days, I don't think it is 100%. The problem for me actually is Glazers are obviously the major problem, but they've spent money. You know, over the last 10 years, they've been the highest spenders in the Premier League. It's been well over $1 billion. The recruitment has been the problem. So this is where maybe someone like Sir Jim Ratcliffe can come in, because clearly they've just literally washed their hands of who they bring in. And the club, because it generates so much money by itself, as they say, okay, we're going to go and you can go and spend that. Now, it's the question of the type of players that they bought that has been the issue for me. So if he's going to come in, bring his own people, bring his recruitment guys, and they can buy better, proper Manchester United players, then I think it can make a difference. But That's a lot of money, over £1 billion, to get 25% of something. But I actually think he's not just thinking about taking control of the football side here and now, something which the Glazers don't really care about, but he's thinking about the possibility of the future, because it looks like clubs in the Premier League especially, and especially clubs like Manchester United, are just going to be worth more and more and more as the deals come and go.
For me, I think it's a big moment. The first person out the door is the CEO. So everyone that works in that football club is now on notice. That's to be perfectly honest, and that for me is all the way down to the players in terms of their performances. I think he set an immediate message here, and I think Manchester United fans will be pleased by that. What they want are high standards, in fact, the very highest standards. So if you're saying on day one, I don't really need to work with this CEO to see that he's not good enough for me, because his body of work over the last 2 years, albeit he's been at the club for 16, if he's been here during this period of time, he's not the person I want in charge, because it's been way below.
You could argue, though, Jim Ratcliffe's, what he's done with Nice and Lausanne hasn't really blown everyone out the water.
Yeah.
So it's not as if he's going to come in and suddenly look. Here's a track record like a Pep Guardiola equivalent of a part owner. So we still don't really know how that's going to go.
No, listen, I am one of those.
It's just the fans are like, as long as it's not, if there's the Glazers have less money or less percentage of the club, then that's a good thing.
The Manchester United fans are at the point where they don't think it could possibly be any worse than the wastage of money that you were just talking about. But for me, the actual mark of whether someone is good at their job is how you feel when they leave it, not when they enter it. To be perfectly honest, you might appoint someone who you think this is the best thing since sliced bread. 3 years later, you think that didn't work out. It was absolutely terrible. So for me, whoever he appoints in this position long term, again, it is about what they do moving forward. Remember, and I don't want to criticise Chelsea and Todd Bowley. They've done something they've done something radical at the football club, and over the long term, it might work out. So it might be too early to judge. But I remember when he came in, people were like, "Saviour, this is it. Todd Bowley, someone who's going to commit this money. We're buying this player, we're buying that player." And in the early days, you were like, "Wow, there's a plan." And then it was like, they're buying another player and another player and another player, and then suddenly people went, "This is getting ridiculous." And there's 36 players. We need another changing room. And people suddenly, just a few months later, saying this person who was meant to save Chelsea, we don't really know if they're going to be a great owner long term, because it doesn't seem like they fit either the convention. And listen, that is a criticism levelled at any person who has been unique in their thoughts and a radical person in terms of changing whatever industry they've worked in. People have criticised them because when there's change, and change you've never seen before, people say, "No, this isn't how it's done." So that's why I don't really want to criticise Todd Bowley. For all I know, they're going to win 5 Champions Leagues off the back of this. But I think to do something so radical straight away by Sir Jim Ratcliffe is a big indication of the kind of character he wants to be at that football club, which is to say, if we don't get elite performance and elite results, I'm happy to change on the dot.
Well, and just in terms of Chelsea, I think I agree with you in terms of the owners. They have thought outside the box, but they've bought too much in potential foreign youth almost that aren't ready for the here and now and the hustle and bustle of the Premier League. And I could go on for hours about that. But in terms of United, yeah, the pressure's on him now, but he's a multi-billionaire. He can handle the pressure. Now it's a question of, it's about quality, not quantity.
But can the people working at the football club handle the pressure? That's what I mean.
Well, but then they will go. And he will bring in the best in class that he sees fit. But then you can only look at what he's done on a football front so far, and it's not blown everyone out the water. So he's under pressure himself, and not to the point where he's going to go or he can't handle the pressure. But does he know exactly who to bring in and how much money is willing to be spent? The thing you would say is the clubs he's had before, nothing like Manchester United. So the money's there, but it's about identifying the right people for United. The money's been spent, Hugh. It's just been spent wrongly.
By the way, even though this is a big piece of news today, with Richard Arnold leaving as CEO, he's still going to be there until December with a bit of a transition period. Patrick Stewart's represented Manchester United at Premier League and European Clubs Associations meetings. He's managed the club's legal and regulatory affairs in his role as their general counsel. He's been there since 2006. So someone taking over from him in the short term is someone very familiar with Manchester United. However, there's going to be a gap of 6 to 8 weeks between the announcement of Sir Jim Ratcliffe's deal and him actually being able to contribute the club. That's because it needs to be ratified and confirmed by the Premier League. So there will be a little bit of an interim period
He'll
here.
be working behind the scenes. No way. He'll be straight on it.
Allegedly. That's the words of Scott Minto.
Not of talkSPORT.
Exactly.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.